And now on Nights with Steve Price from the 50 Up Club, Christopher Zinn.
Yes, we catch up with Christopher from the 50 Up Club, of which I am, of course, a member, on Thursday nights. How are you, Christopher?
Yeah, no, very well. Thank you, Steve.
On my bucket list, and we're talking bucket list tonight, would be certainly a visit to the US Masters. I guess anyone who's got an interest in golf, it's on in a couple of weeks' time, would put that on the list, but I could probably make a bucket list that would go on for pages and pages.
I think that's the art, to have a bucket list that's actually at least a third of it's achievable. It goes, too long lists are very hard to execute. But, I suppose the question is what is the value of a bucket list?
Is there a value? I mean, there's certainly a mental value to it because I think it gives you something to dream about.
I think in terms of having goals, we're told that is a good thing, and towards the end of one's working life, all the more reason to have some of the goals. But I suppose what's interesting is some of the thoughts I've seen that's suggesting that if you have too self-centered a bucket list, if it's too hung up on adventure and excitement, i.e. bungee jumping and swimming with sharks or visiting a Brazilian favela suburb or whatever, then perhaps that's going to take you away from one of the really valuable things in life. And I think that's actually a very big question for older people. How much do we just please ourselves, or how much do we still have to share, involved with our community and our families?
Well, I know you've been reading a piece out of the Wall Street Journal from one of their reporters talking about bucket lists, a psychiatrist, I think his name was Mark Gronin, and he talks
Correct.
about whether one of the things to do when you have a bucket list is not to be selfish about it, but to include other generations of your wider family.
I know, and I think that's a really interesting idea. He says that, from experience of working with older people, that actually they come back and they lose track of what matters, family, friends, and community. They're traveling, they're being very focused on themselves. And he said, actually, if you go away with your children or grandchildren or volunteer locally, these people are much happier than those who are hung up on excitement. Now, it's not normally something we associate with teenagers and younger people being thrill seekers, but there's no doubt that they're not all over 50s, but some, there are many more opportunities to live the high life as you get older, as you've got more time, as you can afford more. But I suppose there is a question as to what sort of well-being and utility that actually delivers.
Well, I guess you can talk to the rest of the family and say, you've got a choice here. I've got a little bit of money stuck away. You can inherit it, or you can come on a trip of a lifetime with me and take all those pictures you like on your iPhone and have a wonderful time. We'll blow the whole lot.
I think that's the stuff of, the whole term bucket list comes from that film from 2009 with Jack Nicholson. I think there's actually another film in terms of that very thought, whereas actually people are saying, let's do something together as a family or as friends that we always wanted to do, and, be the cost. Or you can stand to inherit it. I think that's going to be very interesting. There's lots of comedic potential in that one.
So one thing you should remember, anyone listening to us thinking of doing that, is, of course, you need travel insurance. We've talked a lot about insurance in the last few weeks. You've got some more stats on insurance that's going to interest people, I think.
You mean travel insurance in particular? Or
travel insurance. You really do need to grab it, don't you?
Well, look, exactly. It's something like 1/3 of people go overseas without it. There was one of the travel insurance companies did a poll and found 70% of people thought the toothbrush is more important than travel insurance. It is really crazy. And actually talking with people who are in the diplomatic community, the consular work which Australian diplomats have to do overseas for Aussies who get in trouble and don't have travel insurance is absolutely massive and incredibly costly. So some people seem to be the idea that actually if you get into trouble, the government will bail you out or bring you back or pay your health costs. That's not the case, and they'll come after you for it. And actually the interesting thing about travel insurance is it's not very expensive. Of all the insurances, I mean, you can get insurance for, $5, $10 a day, and that covers you pretty well. And while there are issues in terms of if you're drunk, they won't, they might reject a claim or whatever. There's no doubt that I certainly would never go overseas, not even to New Zealand, without travel insurance.
No, I always buy travel on an American Express card, and that gives you automatic travel insurance. And I've had to claim a few times, and they've been really good. While we're just talking insurance, we should remind people April the 1st tomorrow. If you want to prepay your health insurance, you've only got till midnight tonight.
Yeah, look, get going. I mean, look, it's not the end of the world if you haven't. I'd suggest that people could actually find the equivalent of that 5.5% average increase across all policies by matching themselves up with a better policy and getting better value. But, prepay 1 year ahead. If you do that by midnight, that means that you don't have to pay the increase. So it's probably a better return than you're going to get for cash in a term deposit. And if you're wedded to your health insurance, I think that's a good deal. But look, there's going to be a lot more reform coming in terms of health insurance. While we always talk about it, I think one of the interesting ones is what's called junk insurance by the Minister, the Health Minister, Susan Ley, and others, and them castigating that. The point of the so-called junk insurance is it actually gets the government off your back in terms of the Medicare levy and the lifetime health cover. So you get a pretty poor policy, and if you have no intention of claiming on it or using it, that is an option. But it seems that is going to be up to real scrutiny and suggestions that junk policies like that shouldn't be eligible for the 30% rebate. So I think we're going to see a lot more argument in that area.
Great to catch up. What's on top of your bucket list? I've said mine, the Masters.
Yeah, look, I think mine is to walk in the Himalayas. That's what I would really love to do. Not Everest.
Not silly enough about climbing Everest, I hope.
No, it's not Everest, but it is to be in a very high place. Could be the Rocky Mountains, could be the Himalayas or the Alps, but that's mine.
Sounds like a dream, which is what we all need, mate. Thank you for talking to us on this Thursday night. I'll talk to you next week.
Thank you, Steve.
Christopher Zinn.